Former NFL safety Nick Ferguson, Mile High Sports, played with the Broncos, going to join us now, among other NFL teams, to talk more about this game. And Philadelphia is now the top of the NFL world, and he joins us now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Nick, welcome back. How are you, pal?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Well, some of us can't believe it, so we want to ask you, in the end of that game, when you look at that game and kind of break it down, what was the biggest difference in that game that Philadelphia is on top and New England was unable to get that W?
Well, for me, it was how aggressive the play calling was by Doug Peterson. I mean, we've seen in years past, and when teams have played against the New England Patriots, or just in playoff games, they've taken a foot off the pedal. And to me, no, when you play a team like the Patriots, you can't settle for 3 points. So that was the part that was really shocking to me, how aggressive, Philly came out at the beginning of that game. And Nick Foles, that was great. To be able to take the ball down the field and open the drive and put points on the board, that's definitely confidence boost, not just for the offense, for Nick Foles, but also for the fan base that, they haven't had an opportunity to really celebrate the fact of winning a Super Bowl, being in a Super Bowl in years. And like you mentioned, the Cowboys have had some titles. The Giants have 2 with Eli Manning, and the Redskins have a title. And it seemed like it was the Philadelphia Eagles that were kind of left out in modern-day football as far as going back to a Super Bowl and actually winning it. So I know you guys are loving it up, and the city of brotherly love. I mean, they're on the top of the heat right now, especially after starting the postseason. Let's just call it that, being underdogs 3 games in a row. Now they're the top dog.
Yeah,
that's great. So I love it. It's the one thing I love about football.
It's there's a lot of moments in that game that we can really go back through, but playing the position that you played was very important in that game, and I want to get inside your mind on why both offenses were able to move the ball so freely through the air.
Well, I'll tell you this. Coming into the game, there was a lot of talk about Jim Schwartz's defense and how they rotate their front 7, and that's the thing that keeps them fresh, and Fletcher Cox and being able to pressure Tom Brady and get to him. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, that was their theme, and they figured as though if we can get to Brady, disrupt some of the timing and rhythm of the throws, then we would be successful. Until Brandon Graham made that play in the fourth quarter, to me, it was like that pass rush was nullified. Yeah, they kind of got around Tom Brady, but he did an excellent job, sliding and moving in the pocket and having his eyes downfield and delivering to an open receiver. And sometimes it appeared as though, Tom was making some of the throws blindly. He knew where his guys were, but he could just feel that one hand by a defender just like ever so close to him. But if you're a young quarterback, if you want to know how to play at the quarterback position, just kind of watch how Brady definitely played that game. But that was one of those things that I talked about when I was breaking down this matchup. The way to nullify and, kind of take away the bite off of a fast-flowing defense like the Philadelphia Eagles had is the ability to get the ball out of your hand. We're talking about quick throws, giving your receivers an opportunity to run after the catch. That's something that we knew coming in that Brady was one of the best in the league at doing, and that's why we didn't have a lot of sacks in the game. I think it was only 1 for Brady, and that was that Brandon Graham sack at a pivotal point in the game. But as far as the Patriots defense against Nick Foles and that offense, we knew that that defense was struggling. They had a lot of new pieces. They really couldn't get after the quarterback. Adding James Harrison to the fold kind of gave them an extra guy on the edge who could set the edge and brought a certain physicality that they didn't have the entire way through the season. But I knew Nick Foles would definitely have an opportunity to find some open receivers and find some throws, because it seemed as though once Carson went out and he was made the starting quarterback, the offense was tweaked just a little bit to play to his skill set. And that's what you have to do as a head coach. And to me, that's why I don't think Doug Peterson and his staff is getting as enough credit, because to be able to do that and not be egotistic and say, well, this is our system. We've been running it with Wentz. We're going to run it with you, Nick Foles. They changed the system to fit Nick Foles' skill set, and that's why they ended up winning that game.
Nick Ferguson with us. Nick, this is Pete Thompson. And yes, initially they came out and said we're going to keep with the same system, and then kudos to them for changing to the RPOs and the things that Nick was more comfortable with. I saw Nick Foles. I saw a tweet during the game that said, "This is ridiculous. You're not going to keep trading TDs with Brady. The coverage sucks tonight. DBs keep trying to play man from an outside-in position. That's plain stupid. You can't stop Brady if you give away the inside to his receivers." And that was from former Eagle linebacker Seth Joyner. So as a defensive guy, your thoughts about because Mike said, it didn't seem like there was defense on either side. Was there a part of you that said, boy, they just keep letting Brady do what he's going to do? The Eagles are not going to win this football game.
When I was looking at the game, the first thing that came to mind was I thought about college football in the Big 12, because it's like when no one plays defense in the Big 12, that's why the quarterbacks are able to put up those gaudy numbers. But, I mean, it was one of those games that you knew that it was going to come down to the team that got the stop at the right time and force the turnover. So that's the one thing that made the game really interesting. But for me, and I guess this is one of the bigger stories, is the Malcolm Butler situation. If he does not play, and he did not play in the game, easily because he did not play, that totally disrupted the chemistry and what Matt Patricia wanted to do with his defense. Here's a guy who's played 97% of the snaps, and for whatever reason, and maybe it'll come out at some point, he didn't play in that game. And I believe if he played in that game, things would have been a little different. I know you guys have my former Jets teammate on, Anthony Beck, and he said, well, maybe if Butler had played, maybe he would have counted for maybe 3 to 5 plays. To me, no. As a guy who played defense and knowing how well Malcolm Butler has played and matched up with a lot of, I guess, great receivers in the league like Julio Jones, that would allow Matt Patricia to do some other things. You wouldn't have seen Patrick Chung trying to cover Nelson Aguilar. You may not have seen Zach Ertz, get the slant for the touchdown against Devin McCourty. Maybe that would have been Malcolm Butler on him in that case, giving that defense an opportunity. But that goes to show you guys, one player, one play can definitely be a difference maker in winning or losing the Super Bowl. So I'm still waiting to see what comes out with the true story of what happened with that situation.
Yeah, there's some stuff still coming out on Twitter right now where Malcolm Butler tweeted out and said that despite reports he was not at a concert, he did not miss curfew, and Tom Brady, I guess, retweeted and said, "We love you, Malcolm." I mean, you're right, the full story hasn't come out on that for sure. What about some of the calls, because it's the Super Bowl, the biggest game of the year, all those eyeballs on it, Nick, and just to be specific, the Corey Clemente, was it a touchdown, and then the Zach Ertz, was he established as a runner or not?
Well, see, gentlemen, I think this is probably the most confusing call, what's a catch and what's not. And for me, when I was looking at both plays, I was saying, well, being inconsistent with how the calls were called during the regular season, the Clemens catch, I thought he didn't really secure it, and by the time he did, his foot was on the white. So that should have been an incomplete, pass and not a touchdown. When you look at Zach Ertz, once again, this is where things get totally out of whack. There are different rules for whether you're a runner or you're a regular wide receiver. And from watching the game, and Zach Ertz, did he take 3 steps? Did he make a football move? But I thought once he went into the end zone, almost like Jesse James from the Pittsburgh Steelers, I was looking at what happened with the ball once he went into the end zone. The left hand or the right hand, I believe, slightly came off. But because he took those 3 steps, it made him a runner. So once he got the ball across the plane of the end zone, it was a touchdown. But what that says to me is there needs to be more, definity in the room and the rule, and more clarity as to what is a catch. And I like what the commissioner said in this pregame press conference when he was talking about the rule,
right, blowing
it up, tearing it down, and just trying to make a rule that everyone can actually understand. I'm all for that, because right now I am still confused.
I think a lot of people are. And you tweeted out that you didn't think the Corey Clemente one was a catch, correct?
Yeah, I really didn't, because when he caught the ball, it seemed like it was still jostling in his arms, and he didn't really gain, full possession per the rule. until after, I believe it was left foot touched the white. So per the rule and how everything was called during the regular season, that's incomplete. That's incomplete.
Yeah.
So there's no touchdown. You take that touchdown off the board.
I was surprised by the Clemente one more so than the Ertz one. I didn't like the call in the Pittsburgh game against James. I thought that should have been a touchdown. So the Ertz one I thought was, but I was with you on the Corey's. I thought that one was a little questionable.
It was, and, I had some friends who I was watching the game with, and they were asking me, they said, well, Ron was at that game. They said, well, do you think that maybe someone was in his ear saying, hey, listen, hey, we didn't make a lot of these calls during the year and got it correct, and we don't want to make a big, media faux pas in the biggest game of the NFL season. So we're just going to let that one slide. And then you had the Zach Ertz, and then he was like, oh, Nick, what's going on? And I'm like, hey, I don't work in the league office. I'm not official, and I don't understand what a catch is. So you and I in the same boat.
Former NFL safety Nick Ferguson at Nick Ferguson _25 on Twitter is with us here. Your thoughts when you see the Eagles on 4th and 1, not only go for it, but the play they come up with to throw the ball to Foles?
Well, to me, that was gutsy. But that says a lot about, the coaching staff and having confidence in the players and being able to execute it. And for me, watching it, I was a little surprised too as well because Nick Foles really sold it. He sold it like he was going to the line of scrimmage, making his check. He paused for a second and delayed, and the Patriots defenders, they didn't really think he was going to get the ball. So it was a really gutsy call. But, when you haven't been to the Super Bowl in a while and you really want to win for your players because they put in so much work during the offseason, and win for your fans because the Philly fans, some of the greatest fans in NFL, you have to be willing to take those type of risks to win those type of games because other teams in the past, in the playoffs, regular season, they don't take those chances. And sometimes those are the teams that are now sitting back saying, if we were in that position again, we would have done this. But you have to take those chances, and they paid off.
No question. And then how about, the play on Ertz? That was a really good play design because they set a man in motion, and that kind of let Ertz one-on-one with the D-back, and the D-back looked like he lost his footing there. And, that little hesitation was enough to get that ball in there. Playing the position you did, when you're lined up one-on-one with a tight end like that, that's a tough spot for you.
Well, it is a tough spot, but here's what you have to understand. As a DB, you're always taught, recognize the formations inside the red zone. And I post a lot of these type of videos on social media to kind of educate people. But as a DB, McCoy should have been alerted right off the jump because you have Zach Ertz, who's a great, route running tight end. And then they motion away. Anytime there's a 3-by-1 motion or a line, you're thinking slant right now. So McCoy should have jumped inside, anchored his inside foot, and forced Foles to throw what would be maybe a touch pass with timing and rhythm to the corner. That takes a little more precision than throwing the slant. The slant is easy, but his alert should have went off right now when the motion occurred. 3-by-1 motion a line is slant all day, every day, college football and in the NFL.
A couple other. You also had the Ertz 4th and 1. That call there. Yesterday, one of our beat guys said he asked Reich, what if you guys didn't get that 4th down? And he cut him off. He said, game over. That play there on the Ertz 4th and 1 that they get on their own 45-yard line. That's another tough spot for the secondary, it seemed like, that had to cover Ertz.
Well, yeah, but once again, this is where I say, well, if Malcolm Butler was in that game, now that gives you some choices as far as what you can do from a matchup standpoint if you met Patricia. But once again, exceptional play call. If you make it, they did, great call. If you don't, it's just like, well, why did they go for it? That's what we're talking about. We're saying that was the play that possibly cost the Eagles an NFL championship. But you got to sometimes you got to be really gutsy when you make your calls and calls like that. But that all starts with practice. You have to ask yourself how many times they've run that play in practice and were successful. So the players went in with a certain level of confidence that they can pull that off. But by putting the points on the board, by moving the ball down the field as effectively as they did against the New England Patriots, they were thinking, okay, well, we're going to go for it. Everything is on our side. Fate is on our side. We're not going to give Tom Brady extra possessions and then once again look back after the loss and say, we wish we had gone for it. So once again, kudos for them for taking that risk, and it paid off.
Yeah, Doug was certainly aggressive in his play calling as we visit with Nick Ferguson here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. I know on defense, they matched up Malcolm Jenkins on James White, and then for Gronk, they used Nigel Bradham in 2 high and Corey Graham in single high. Was that interesting to you of the choices that Jim Schwartz made defensively?
Well, yeah, all season long, you know, with the Patriots' backs, we know they're great at running the ball. They're great at, you know, being matched up and taking advantage of maybe a linebacker, even a speedy linebacker we saw against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But putting a guy who is used to covering against, you know, James White and Deion Lewis, now that definitely kind of made things a little difficult as far as matchups for Tom Brady. But when we look at Gronk, it really doesn't make a difference how many players you put on if he's going to make his catches. And we saw early on in that game, you know, Tom's timing and rhythm was off with Gronk. But once he found that timing and rhythm, then it was all Gronk all day. But, you know, as a coach, that's what you have to do. You have to try to find those matchups within the matchups and have the ability to exploit them. But once again, that's where your personnel. Think about it this way. If the same thing happened to Malcolm, that happened to Malcolm Butler, happens to Jenkins, that would have totally changed the complexity for Jim Schwartz and what he was able to do. But because you have a safety in Jenkins who played corner, now he plays safety, he knows how to move his feet, he knows what to do with his hands, that definitely helped take that option away from Tom Brady. And that could have been one of another matches where we break the game down and say, well, that is what helped the Eagles win the championship.
Really good stuff from Nick Ferguson here. And I think, Nick, the biggest play in the history of the franchise is Brandon Graham's strip sack, because you know, I know, we all know what happens if Brady gets a chance to go down the field, right? We know the ending to that story.
Absolutely. I was telling my wife, I was like, here it comes. And then all of a sudden, Graham comes free, and he knocks the ball out. And I was like, wow. I said, ball game. My wife's like, the game is not over. I was like, that is ball game, because usually we've seen Tom in so many playoffs, so many games, and the Super Bowl, you know, take his team down with a minute left on the clock. The only other guy better than Tom Brady is Drew Brees at doing that. So when that happened, I was like, that is huge. So Brandon Graham definitely made that Super Bowl happen, that Super Bowl win take place. I know Nick Foles was exceptional in the game, but if he doesn't make that play, we're talking about something totally different. So he's in Philly. I'm sure that he will never have to pay for another meal in any restaurant or any pub.
I would think not. Hey,
he's going to get free meals at So will Sudfeld since he looks just like him, right? Like, oh, yeah, sure, I'm in.
Nick, you tweeted at one point that the Pats formation recognition is lagging. What exactly does that mean?
Well, when you would see the Eagles get into the bunch formations, you know, usually as a defense, you try to prepare for those during the week. It's like so many route combinations that the offense can actually run out of that bunch formation. It just felt as though, you know, for some reason they wouldn't hip to what was going on. And it's always one player. Like if you see Alshon Jeffrey, who normally lines up outside the number, he's in the bunch formation, he's at the point that you know something's up. If he's the second guy in the bunch formation, you're thinking the guy who's on the point is trying to clear out so they can create space for either Zach Ertz or Alshon Jeffrey. It seemed like they were just a little off in their pre-snap recognition. And sometimes that makes a difference in stopping a team that's going forward on fourth down. That's the difference between stopping a team that's in the third and long situation. So that was the thing that really stumped me. And I was like, well, with the Bill Belichick team, you never really see that happen. But in this particular game, they didn't seem like they were on top of it.
If you're Howie Roseman, what do you do if you get a call about Nick Foles this offseason?
Well, depending on who the team is and what they're trying to offer, you definitely have to take a listen and take that phone call. If it's the Denver Broncos who having issues at the quarterback position and they're willing to give you a first-round draft choice for Nick Foles, you might have to entertain it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you trade him, but you're going to entertain any thought because at the end of the day, every team, no matter if you win a Super Bowl or not, you're trying to get better. And Carson Wentz is coming off a knee surgery. So maybe you take that first rounder. Now maybe you go out in the draft and you get another quarterback to back him up. But if you're the Eagles, you're in a great spot. You have a backup quarterback who has had opportunity to start in the league. He has trade value if you want to go there. He's not going to cost you that much because, if I'm not mistaken, he counts $7 million against the cap.
Yeah, 7.5.
Right? And there are so many teams desperate for a starting quarterback, and some teams that don't even have a viable option at the number 2 spot. So, Lurie's in an excellent place. If I am Doug Peterson, if I am Jeffrey Lurie, I'm not thinking about moving Nick Foles. Because once again, like I just said, we don't know what's going to happen with Carson Wentz as he tries to transition back to that starting role after being injured.
Yeah.
And if it takes him about 6 games in 2018, at least you have a proven quarterback with Nick Foles there.
Or they can send Sudfeld there and say it's Foles.
Listen, I'm not trading Nick Foles for anything right now.
Well, the Broncos have the 5th pick in the draft. So if John Elway called Howie Roseman and say, we'll give you pick 5, I mean, you got to do that, right?
Hey, listen, you got to entertain the thought of it.
Ugh.
You don't have to, but you have to entertain the thought of it. To me, fellas, I'll say this. It all depends on where Carson Wentz is and his rehab.
Yeah.
If he's right on target and we know that there haven't been any setbacks,
and Nick, and how much they believe in that room in Sudfeld. Like, if they feel comfortable enough in Sudfeld, does that? I mean, that plays a factor too.
That's right. If Sudfeld is showing you something during the season, whether you watch him in practice and his work ethic, how he leads the team, now you can say, well, you know what? There's no better value for Nick Foles than it is right now coming off the playoff run that he's had and being an NFL MVP.
Yeah.
Maybe we go out and we're able to maybe get a first round and maybe a second round in 2019. If you can do that and build up your team on both sides of the ball, you definitely entertain it. But if you don't believe, Sudfeld has shown you anything,
right,
practice that would be any indicators, you keep Nick Foles.
Yeah. Nick Ferguson played NFL safety. Mile High Sports works out there in Denver. He's got the phone line to John Elway. He can make this call happen. We'll see if he can make it tough. Nick, great stuff. Always great talking football with you. And hopefully we can catch up for some draft stuff and some more football talk.
All right. Congratulations, Eagles. And, hey, you guys celebrate. You deserve it.
Oh, we will.
Yes.
Parade on Thursday.
No problem with that. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
All right. Take care, guys.
Nick Ferguson here on the Sports Bash.